With the beginning of the emergence of oil in the late 40s of the last century, changes occurred in the social and economic life of Kuwaiti society. Kuwait has known the beginnings of modern urban planning and what was called for in the dispossession and demolition of homes, with the aim of improving the city and establishing various facilities in it. This was accompanied by the arrival of large numbers of Arab and foreign expatriates to take advantage of the available job opportunities at high wages. The period of the 50s and 60s also witnessed the influx of large numbers of desert Bedouins settling on the outskirts of the city and its environs, seeking work opportunities. This has coincided with the changes that the extended family witnessed in the Kuwaiti society, as its numbers gradually decreased and became a minority in society, and this led to an increase in housing demand on the part of these small-sized families, and thus the beginnings of the emergence of the housing demand can be dated to the beginning of the 50s of the last century. Therefore, the state of Kuwait paid considerable attention to the housing welfare of its citizens from the early 1950s by way of social welfare that the state provides, like education, healthcare, and others, as the government had set plans for housing low-income families. The development of planning and organizing residential areas and cities was through government legislation to establish bodies concerned with providing residential care. In recognition of the importance of housing in society, the government created a special ministry for housing in the ministerial formation of 1975, whereby an Amiri decree was issued on March 11, 1975, to establish the Ministry of Housing. The government's interest in building housing for low-income people goes back to the winter of 1954, where torrential rains caused the demolition of many old mud houses and left their owners homeless, and led them to resort to schools or prefabricated houses that the municipality allowed them to live in. On 26th of December 1954, the Construction Council, as the body that oversaw determining the population and urban policy at that time, issued a decision to build 2,000 housing units to be distributed among the beneficiaries. With the emergence of the problem of the need for housing in a steady and increasing manner to include the largest proportion of the population, the government's role in the housing issue has evolved. The Public Authority for Housing Welfare was established in accordance with Law 47 of 1993 to provide different housing welfare alternatives for eligible citizens. The authority implements government housing policies, while its direction form an integral part of the economic and social system of the state of Kuwait, with a higher demand to increase the rate of implementation. PAWH's strategy and projects introduce a higher level of private and public interaction and partnership, encouraging real estate developers to further interact with its plans and projects. PAWH is a public authority that acts as a corporate body with an independent budget, subject to supervision by the minister in charge of housing affairs. PAWH's capital consists of two components: cash and in-kind. The cash component amounts to 1,600,000,000 Kuwaiti dinars. The Minister of Finance is authorized to introduce any increases to capital in one or more payment, engaging other government authorities and public institutions and organizations to generate the required financing. The in-kind component consists of lands currently allocated and those to be allocated in the future for housing welfare objectives. The development of planning and organizing residential areas and cities was through government legislation to establish bodies concerned with providing residential care. Kuwait hired a South Korean consortium to build Kuwait's newest smart city from scratch, a $4 billion project. The name of the city will be South Saad Al Abdallah and will provide accommodation for between 25,000 to 40,000 families. The new city will be 15,913 acres in size. Construction started in 2019. The South Korean Construction Consortium will be a public-private partnership led by POSCO A&C and Hyundai Architects and Engineering Societies Co. With this project, South Korea is exporting its smart city concept into the Middle East. The concept is to be copied is the concept of the city in Bundang in South Korea. South Saad Al Abdallah City project is about development of an eco-friendly and smart city in line with international standards. The spread over 64.4 square kilometers, comprising more than 30,000 housing units to accommodate more than 400,000 people. It will be the first city in the Middle East to be both eco-friendly and smart. The task includes development of a private advancement that will be spread over a 59-kilometer zone, which is set to house 25,000 to 40,000 private units. The idea of this environment-friendly smart city is based on the city's dependence on modern technology through connecting its services and roads by an internet network, considering that all its inhabitants will be citizens who are users of smartphones and smart devices, which will make it easy for them to use all services of the city more efficiently and with less effort. The possibility of connecting the city to electrical energy through solar cells will be studied. It will also be designed in a way to avoid visual pollution through binding city inhabitants to use specific colors for buildings. It might also witness binding them to use specific designs and specific construction materials to be within the financial ability of the citizens to afford. Under the agreement, Korea Land and Housing Corporation worked on the plan and conducted a feasibility analysis. It also worked with the client to establish a joint company in charge of designing, constructing, and operating the project. The Smart City, it is the first of its kind to be built in Kuwait. It is an urban development which will use multiple information and communication technology solutions to manage a city's assets. The Housing Cooperation Agreement that was signed between Kuwait and South Korea was part of the Kuwaiti government's effort to find a swift solution to the long-pending housing problem. Smart cities contribute to creating economic resources and opportunities for youth, providing environment solutions and achieving sustainable development. Exporting well-proven concepts is a smart move, as the economically active population in the Middle East is growing relatively more than anywhere else in the world. Kuwait is currently working on the planning of 9 new cities in the coming years. South Saad Al Abdallah will be the example city. The construction of the city is part of New Kuwait 2035, which is a development plan that represents the state's promising economic future by 2035, a plan that aims at transforming Kuwait to a financial and commercial center that attracts investments worldwide. Whilst South Saad Al Abdallah is still few years off, smart cities and technologies are already being built into other new housing developments, like South Al Matla'. The foundations are just being laid for what is Kuwait's largest housing project so far, with more than 28,000 homes being created. For architecture companies in Kuwait, the ever-changing needs of the population are disrupting traditional design thinking. Kuwait's oldest souk is also being earmarked for the smart treatment. Kuwait is one of many countries in the Middle East with ambitious plans to develop connected, competitive, and convenient cities, contributing to the global smart city markets, which is between the estimation worth of $2.6 trillion by 2025.
This idea began from our company, which is the National Technology Enterprises Company. When our group CEO, Mr. Anas Mirza, he proposed to the Public Authority for Housing Welfare to build a house for the future of Kuwait. That is a house which is a sustainable house that supports the vision of New Kuwait. So let's start from the beginning. So when we were thinking about building this house, we developed a criteria that is based on 3 pillars. When we talk about these 3 pillars, these are the 3 pillars are for the materials to be affordable, available and sustainable. When we say that it's affordable, so everyone can buy them, and also to be available, that are from either like most of the materials to be available in the market, and sustainable. You know, it supports the sustainability of the house, which reduces the energy consumption and water consumption, and also reduces the CO2 emission. We have implemented around 15 technologies in this house, starting from the photovoltaic solar systems that are in the car park and also in the rooftop. And we have also implemented the HVAC system, which is the VRF system. We have also we have in the house a grey water treatment plant, which is the first plant in a residential house. We have also the home automation systems, which is the sensors for the lighting, and dimming sensor and motion sensors for the lighting. And also we fixed water conservation tools in the toilets and in the bathrooms. And there are many technologies that are implemented. You can view them in the website and in the Instagram profile of the house. Let's talk about the solar system. The solar system, it generates around 5 to 10 kilowatt in the house. The connected load in the conventional houses, as we know that it's almost or approximately it's 100 kilowatt. When people they ask for electricity connection for their houses, they ask for around 100 kilowatt. But you know, we reduced this amount to 50 or 55 kilowatt, and we requested the MEW to connect this power to the house. And also we are, we connected the solar electricity from the plant, and that's how we reduce the electricity consumption. This home, actually, we name it House 2035, and that is aligned with the vision of New Kuwait. If you look at the vision of New Kuwait, you will see that sustainability is one of the major factors or major pillars, you know, of this vision. And we are building this house to be aligned with this vision, and it will support this vision for now and in the future. This smart home, we think that it will be very useful, and it will be like you know, a good case study, you know, for the government to build this house in the future, you know, and also for the local people, you know, to get an ideas and to build their homes and to be a sustainable homes. This is a sample, you know. We are studying this house. We will be running different scenarios that are, you know, it will be running like as if a Kuwaiti family is living in this house, and we will study all the factors and effects that will affect the usage of this house. And we will be, at the end, we will generate reports, and we will study all the effects of this house. We reduced the electricity consumption by about 50%, you know, and also the water consumption, the same amount. And also we reduced the CO2 emissions by 33%. And that is a huge effect on the infrastructure and also on the economics of the state of Kuwait. We developed the website for booking and reservation to come and visit the house like 3 or 4 months ago. And this is like the booking or reserving the appointment. It is available now, but we don't know yet because based it depends on the decisions from the authorities, and we will be working with them, and we will see that if we can. But I'm sure it will be available in the next days or in the next month.
In December of 1954, the government of Kuwait adopted a decision to establish the Construction Board to announce its urban and housing policy at that time, when the building of 2,000 houses commenced in multiple models distributed over 5 areas. On completion, the Construction Board, in cooperation with Kuwait Municipality, distributed the completed households to eligible families. Later, in August of 1956, the State Property Department was established to assume the duty of distribution of public houses to eligible families, having ascertained that eligibility requirements of housing apply to them. Then, in 1958, the Housing Committee was formed in cooperation with the State Property Department to distribute government houses to the eligible beneficiaries. This was followed by the formation of another committee called the Housing Distribution Committee, which was formed by local members to assign and distribute the government housing to eligible citizens. In the year of 1960, the Credit Bank was established with a capital of 7.5 million Kuwaiti dinars to facilitate real estate loans to citizens, and after the bank had proven its success as an institution providing services to citizens in the form of loans, a law was issued in 1965 to develop the bank's activity under the name Credit and Saving Bank, to also undertake the task of building residential houses with a capital of 25 million dinars, until the bank's budget in 1976 reached 320 million Kuwaiti dinars, which indicates the bank's expansion in its activities and its contribution to providing loans to citizens with the aim of building housing and expanding and maintaining existing buildings. The bank has also provided the necessary facilities for residential areas such as mosques and schools, and the construction of public housing as an alternative to nest housing. In 1961, the State Property Department was incorporated into the Housing Department of the Ministry of Finance and Economy, currently the Ministry of Finance, and new rules for the distribution of government housing to eligible families were issued after conducting prerequisite social research on applicants to assure their eligibility to such housing, and in 1962 an Amiri decree was issued to assign the duty of research and distribution of public housing for the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor. Later on in 1967, the legal system of housing welfare was issued under a resolution of the Minister of Social Affairs. The legal system established comprehensive rules on eligibility for housing. The total number of houses distributed to citizens by such authorities at that time was 15,843 units. In 1974, Law Number 15 was issued to establish the General Authority for Housing to take over the establishment of government housing for eligible families. Under this law, the authority released many administrative and accounting restrictions to enable it to carry its tasks effectively. The General Authority for Housing was not assigned at that time to distribute housing, but supervised construction operations only. In recognition of the importance of housing in society, the government created a special ministry for housing in the ministerial formation of 1975, whereby an Amiri decree was issued on March 11th of 1975 to establish the Ministry of Housing, which included the Housing Administration and the Collection Department of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor, and was assigned the task of providing and distributing government homes and planning for housing development. The new ministry included special departments for requests and research that carry out the tasks of privatization, distribution, and follow-up, in addition to the technical office that undertakes the preparation of research and studies on housing from social to economic to legal and statistical aspects. On May 31st of 1982, an Emiri decree was issued to form the Supreme Council for Housing, headed by the Prime Minister or whomever he delegates, and the membership of the Minister of Housing and 9 members with competence and experience, to be chosen by a decision of the Council of Ministers for a period of 5 years, renewable, and in July of 1986, the government decided to unify the housing entities into one unit to save time and administrative and technical efforts. The Ministry of Housing was then merged with the General Authority for Housing, so that the General Authority for Housing would assume planning, designing, implementing and distributing government housing to eligible families. In the year of 1989, the Public Authority for Housing issued the Housing Welfare System by Ministerial Resolution number 1116 for the year 1989. In accordance with the Law number 47 of 1993, PAHW was established to provide the housing welfare services to eligible families. With the establishment of PAHW, the authority's vision was to develop urban communities which economically secure the livelihood, work and sustainability of citizens. The public authority's mission was committing and contributing to the development of housing cities with integrated amenities and services through sustainable housing policies that provide the required integration between work environment and requirements of modern living, and through activating public-private partnership. The objectives of the authority is providing suitable housing to eligible citizens, bridging the gap between demand, execution rates and reduction of the waiting period. Also achieve sustainability by transforming non-income generating lands to income-generating investments and attracting the best modern means of development for housing projects by activating public-private partnership. Furthermore, expanding the provision of various real estate products and services, paying close attention to product quality and the development of environmentally friendly smart housing cities. PAHW has a board of directors composed by a resolution adopted by the Council of Ministers. The board of directors is chaired by the minister and includes in its membership the general manager of PAHW and 6 members acting with a capacity of not less than an assistant under-secretary. They represent the appropriate authorities related to housing and 3 other experienced and competent members. The Board of Directors concerns itself with representations of the general policy of PAHW and its objectives within the General Development Plan of the state. A General Manager and 7 deputies, who are appointed for 4 renewable years under a decree, head the authority. The General Manager represents the authority in its relations with third parties and before the judiciary. The General Manager is responsible for implementing the policy drawn by the board. Moreover, the General Manager oversees managing the authority and deciding all matters stipulated under the law or regulations. He may authorize the General Manager's deputies in some of his competences. Law number 2 of 2015, who sold his house, obliges the Public Authority for Housing Welfare to allocate a suitable house for those who sold their house and paid the full value of the loan granted to him by the credit bank for one time, provided that this is the right of usufruct or rent for him and his family. The Public Authority for Housing Welfare has designated 2 projects for this category, namely the East Taima project, which contains 509 houses, and East Sabah Al Ahmed project, which contains 1,184 houses.
In 2018, and it has been submitted before the agreed deadline. Even through the corona crisis, the work still kept going, so we didn't have any delays submitting the work. The aim of this project is to provide houses for people who sold their houses before and who repaid their debt to the government. And it's to benefit these families who don't own a house, to be given to them as a rental housing instead of it being owned. The project is building 509 houses, so it will benefit 509 families in total. So we'll talk about the project in general. The size of the land of the project is 273,000. The project costs 46 million dinar Kuwaiti. The project includes building and constructing 509 housing units, infrastructure, a mosque and the retail shops, and it includes the infrastructure, parking lots, and 9 substations. We'll talk about the house now. The house is modern style. This is the first time the Public Authority of Housing Welfare adopts the modern design in their houses. So they used 3 different materials for the facade. They used the metal laser cut for the doors, and basalt stone, and they included integrated it with the Sigma that is known or commonly used in Kuwait houses. The house is 2 floors. The first floor consists of an independent douaniya with the private entrance, a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, a place for the driver and the housemaid. The second floor consists of 4 master plans and master bedroom, and the living room. So even though the plot area is 300 meters square, the built-up area is still consistent with the other project of Public Authority of Housing Welfare, which is 425 meters square. So it's not less and not more. It's still the same area. And this is the first time we included a shaft for the elevator. So if the owner wants to add an elevator, we provided a space for them to add their elevator. If they don't want to use it, they can use it as a storage space.
The Public Authority for Housing Welfare signed a contract for the construction, completion, and the maintenance of 509 government homes, roadworks, infrastructure networks, parking lots, public buildings, and power stations in East Taima, with a value of 46 million dinars on an area of 372,945 square meters. The land area of one house is 300 square meters and the building area is 425 square meters, with the same components of the government house. As it consists of 2 floors, the ground floor contains a diwaniya, a reception hall, a dining room, a kitchen, a driver's room, a maid's room, and 4 toilets, while the first floor includes 4 bedrooms, a living room, and 4 toilets.
Responsible for 9 substations and also the electrical work in the houses and in governmental building. Also, the substation that we use in this project are 40, the 4 transformer project. So those substations will provide from 50 to 70 houses. Each substation is connected to the other substation. There are 3 substations are connected together. In case of a blackout, the substation will help from the other substation. So even if there is a blackout, there will not be a blackout in those buildings. The project itself is the first project that uses the solar panels in the governmental buildings. They use the solar panel in the mosque and also in the shops. It will provide up to 30% of the consumed power. The houses itself has panorama windows that will expose the daylight so that it can minimize the usage of power in houses. In the streets, we are responsible for the lighting. We used LED lighting also because it's environmental friendly, even inside the mosque and the shops. Also, I think it's a new law in the Ministry of Water and Electricity that we have to use in each project environmental friendly lights so that we can consume power for the next generations.
With regard to the East Sabah Al Ahmed project, the PAHW has begun the work of planning and designing infrastructure networks and preparing environmental and traffic studies for the project, which will be built on an area of 1.2 million square meters and contains 1,184 houses with an area of 300 square meters per house. In addition, the project will include mosques, a group of shops, a supermarket, public parks, a health center, and a gas station. Kuwait's Public Authority for Housing Welfare has emerged as one of the biggest clients for the construction sector in recent years. Kuwait's population is projected to grow to 5.3 million by 2020, from 3.2 million in 2012. Although there are plenty of residential properties for expatriates and office space is widely available, Kuwaiti citizens increasingly expect the state to provide housing for them, and affordable accommodation for nationals is becoming increasingly scarce. To combat this, the PAHW has been tasked with the construction of a series of new residential schemes which will add hundreds of thousands of new homes over the next decade. In 2011, it awarded an estimated $1.1 billion of deals, including a $448 million infrastructure package for the new Sabah Al Ahmed housing scheme. The project, which is located 50 kilometers south of Kuwait City, will provide more than 9,000 housing units to Kuwaiti citizens. PAHW is also planning 4 major new township developments: Jaber Al Ahmed, Saad Al Abdallah, Mitla' and Khairan, which will add more than 50,000 new residential units to total supply. In 2012, however, awards from the authority stalled. In the year to September, it has not awarded any contracts of significant value and has retendered some public buildings contracts. Part of the authority's housing plans includes the formation of joint stock companies to act as developers of major new schemes, with about 40% of shares in each new firm held publicly through a listing on the Kuwait Stock Exchange. Bidding on the construction contracts for the new housing schemes and subscription to share issues for the new development companies are open to both international and local firms. International firms, however, cannot hold listings on the KSE if they want to participate in any new offering. As with the Kuwait's petroleum subsidiaries, any major new project tender is announced through the weekly official Kuwait Gazette, with the PAHW first asking for requests for qualification, followed by the proposals and bids. Kuwait's Public Authority for Housing Welfare has inked contracts of commitment with the private sector for housing development projects worth 152.4 million Kuwaiti dinars in Jaber Al Ahmed and Sabah Al Ahmed districts. Granting the investment opportunity to the developers was in line with the Cabinet's Resolution 32/2016, its amendments, and the Law of Partnership between the public and private sectors 116/2014. The public-private project includes developing areas for warehouses, handicrafts, labor accommodations, as well as infrastructural works for a 30-year investment period, effective from the start of commercial operations. As per the plan, a commercial complex will be built within the Jaber Al Ahmed district. The complex will include galleries and halls for multiple purposes in addition to cafes. Meanwhile, the overall value of the project will be paid by the private sector, with none of the costs being incurred by the public funds. The Housing Authority's investment towards the partnership exceeds 38 million Kuwaiti dinars. Also, construction of Wafra residential tower, located on Hissa Al Mbarak district along the Kuwait City waterfront. The project involves construction of a residential tower comprising 5 blocks consisting 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, as well as vast penthouses. The tower holds a wide array of apartment typologies including 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments and vast penthouses. Because of the unique geometry of the tower, All apartments have sweeping frameless views across the Gulf. Corner apartments have multiple orientations. The emblematic stepped blocks generate lush terraces that provide space for sports, amenities, a swimming pool and diwaniyas. The facade is marked by a rational rectangular grid that enhances the visual effect of the skewed volumes of the tower blocks. On street level, the plinth accommodates a raised lobby with lounge areas and co-working spaces with seaside views. Al Matla' housing project is considered as the most gigantic project ever executed by the public authority for housing welfare in the history of Kuwait. The project is located 40 kilometers northwest of Al Jahra city, covering an area of 100 kilometers. The project comprises a total of 30,000 housing units, residential plots of 400 meters each. Al Matla' city, set to house about 400,000 residents, includes 116 schools, about 156 mosques, 48 mini-markets, 12 districts, 12 health centers in each district, and 3 specialized clinics and other utilities. South Al Matla' city is the largest housing project in Kuwait currently being executed in cooperation with international experts.
Before that is the infrastructure. The infrastructure is simply everything under the ground, from sewage systems, electricity, rainfall reservoir, to internet, phone cables, everything under the ground. Road systems, obviously. We're done with that stage. So Kuwaiti citizens now can build their homes starting next month. The other stage that we're in is the main buildings. We're building 55 buildings right now, 2 schools, 7 mosques, a cooperative center, and a police station, of course, a library, and that's the main thing. My role as an engineer here in this project, I'm an HSE engineer, which stands for Health, Safety and Environment. I'm responsible for the lives, the safety and the environment of this project. I make sure that everything goes smoothly and as safe as possible. My job here got 10 times harder with the COVID-19 outbreak, obviously. We made many restrictions, such as that people can't be in an office, only one person in an office, and we obtained that using the 30% rule, which was confirmed by the Council of Ministers. The other part of the project was, the other part of the safety control was obviously maintaining, wearing masks at all times, traveling between sites, 1 person per 1 vehicle, and mainly that's it. Honestly, I see myself as an optimistic person. I see sunlight through the tunnel, and hopefully this country gets through this pandemic and we see more safety and prosperity for this country. We couldn't get our employees and workers right to the site. Usually workers travel in buses, and that was the main obstacle. We stopped the project at the early stages of last year, and we restarted during July. That's when the restrictions eased, so travel was much easier. That was the largest obstacle, but after that we started showing up, and since then we haven't stopped. The project has been going on, the train has started driving, and the main thing is that we're glad that we're fighting through it, and I'm hopeful that we'll get through it, inshallah.
The PAHW has signed a contract of about 288 Kuwaiti million dinars with the Italian Salini Costruttori Engineering Company and Turkey's Colin Group to build the city's infrastructure. South Al Matla' City project has created a significant change in the housing philosophy in Kuwait and created a situation of optimism among those concerned with the housing issue, in addition to lowering of rent prices of private housing in the country.
Our contract is based on 25 buildings. 6 of them are chiller-based, air-cooled chillers, and the other 19 is based on DX, package units. And so most of the buildings have a combination of mini splits and the other 2. We oversee, we check if the air ducts are insulated properly. As a part of my job, we oversee the installation process of HVAC systems. We oversee the installation process of the plumbing work in the public buildings. We oversee the installation process of firefighting systems in the public buildings. The HVAC systems consists of two to three main categories. One of them is the chiller system. It's called air-cooled chillers. The other part is the DX. The third part is the mini-split units, and we install them on buildings based on what the building needs, and the firefighting plumbing that we do, it has to comply with the global standards, and it has to comply with the Kuwaiti firefighting force, that we have to meet their standards. We have to work our HVAC systems based on the Ministry of Electricity and Water and their standards as well. The plumbing work that we see in the site is based on designs as well, and it has been going on a really good pace, and we have been following every day the plumbing work of the public buildings, and all the materials that have been used on the piping systems they have to meet a global standard, and they have to meet a standard that we had on the designs prior.
The new city's population is expected to reach about 400,000 inhabitants and will contribute to the reduction of the waiting period to get a home, especially as it is the largest residential city in Kuwait, as well as resolving the housing issue, rising of rent, and the elimination of excess housing in urban areas. The scope of work includes construction of 150 kilometers of roads and related structures, and numerous artworks, lighting infrastructure, water distribution, rainwater gathering and sewage systems, and other civil works necessary for the distribution of electricity, installation of telecommunication networks, and traffic control.
As a quality control engineer, we are the gateway of this project. We make sure all materials are tested and qualified for this project. We test samples through Kuwait University labs and Ministry of Defense and KESER labs to meet all the requirement and the standards. We have approved subcontractor Shams International Company, which is specialized and qualified company for environmental monitoring for both contracts. Shams International submit a monthly report in accordance with regulation and conditions of the General Authority for the Environment to make sure all environmental aspects are monitored and controlled. In this project, we have partners to test samples through approved labs.
The state of Kuwait paid considerable attention to the housing welfare of its citizens from the early 1950s by way of social welfare that the state provides, similar to education, healthcare and others, as the government had set plans for housing Kuwaiti families. With the emergence of the problem of the need for housing in a steady and increasing manner to include the largest proportion of the population, the government role in the housing issue has evolved. The Public Authority for Housing, PAHW, was established in accordance with Law No. 47 of 1993 to provide different housing welfare alternatives for eligible citizens. Kuwait's Public Authority for Housing Welfare has emerged as one of the biggest clients for the construction sector in recent years and has been tasked with the construction of a series of residential schemes.